Broadcasting live from somewhere in the Shadow Realm, this is YuGiOh Deck Talk. Here's your host, Doug Dimmaduel.
Hey there, welcome to another episode of YuGiOh Deck Talk. Today I want to take a look at a few new support cards that are going to be coming out in the near future for the Fluffal and Frightfur archetype. If you're not familiar with the archetype, I did do another episode quite a ways back about just a pretty basic build as to what to get out of a really good pure Fluffal type of deck. A lot of the major players, but of course that doesn't mean that we can't improve on the deck. And it seems like right now overseas in the OCG, there's a few cards that it seems like just a lot of us over here in the United States really want to get our hands on. And hopefully sooner than later we're going to be seeing some of these cards in the TCG. And I just want to go over, I got about 5 of them right here that I want to at least take a look at and just start thinking about how it's going to impact our current decks. And then also too, I want to just discuss the upcoming Link summoning format and how that will affect the Frightfur Fluffal type deck as well. It may not necessarily mean the death of the Frightfur archetype. So anyway, let's start with looking at a pendulum monster here. It's Edge Imp Cotton Eater. It is a level 7 Fiend pendulum type. Its pendulum scale is 1. It's got a 2400 attack and 1600 defense. And its pendulum effect is all fusion monsters you control gain 300 attack. Once per turn, if a Frightfur fusion monster is fusion summoned to your field, you can draw 1 card. And the card text is, if this card is special summoned, you can inflict 200 damage to your opponent for each Frightfur monster in your graveyard. You can also use this effect of Edge Imp Cotton Eater once per turn. So it's got some pretty good effects. I'm not necessarily sure how much of an impact it will have on some of the decks that I'm running, but as far as from a pendulum standpoint, I mean, it's better late than never. I know I don't know, I really don't see too many people taking advantage of pendulum monsters within the Frightfur decks. It seems like it's more of a, obviously it's more of a fusion-heavy deck, and you are really trying to get your draw power going, but which is exactly why I like this pendulum effect, especially if there is a Frightfur fusion monster, which you definitely will be summoning with this type of deck. At least you get to draw another card and, still kind of keep your hand fresh, trying to get more cards in there as well between this card and of course Toy Vendor and of course the whole combo with the with the Fluffal wings. So again, it's a pretty good card. I'm not necessarily sure how it will fit depending on what kind of deck, but I know some people will definitely take advantage of that. We have another Fluffal card coming out, and it is Fluffal Patchwork. It is level 1 fairy, 0 attack, 0 defense, and its effect is, this card is treated as a Frightfur monster while it is on the field. While this card is face up on the field, you can substitute this card for any one fusion material listed on a Frightfur fusion monster, but the other fusion materials must be correct. So, to me that sounds a lot like King of the Swamp, but really just specialized for your Frightfur deck. Again, this is one that it could be useful. I think it's a pretty good card as well. I like it a lot. But this next card that I'm going to take a look at here, this is the one that everybody's drooling over. This is the one we really, really want to see as soon as possible in the TCG, and that is Frightfur Patchwork. It is a normal spell card, and what it does is it allows you to add 1 polymerization and 1 Edge Imp monster from your deck to your hand, and you can only activate 1 Frightfur Patchwork per turn. So this is like a double surge card, and I think that's why we're all so excited about this one, is you'll be able to get your Edge Imp Chain or your Edge Imp Sabers out of your deck as well as a polymerization. So it may make at least me think twice about having some of my other polymerization search cards. I know I have the fusion plant in my deck currently. I know some people don't like it, and I mean, for me it seems to be working out okay. But this one is just going to be a great spell card that you can definitely need for just about any Frightfur deck, and I would not be surprised if everybody who runs a Frightfur deck runs out and grabs this as soon as it comes out in the TCG. So that's one that I'm keeping my eye on. That's one a lot of people are keeping their eye on. That's an awesome card. We also have another spell card that is currently in the OCG that I think is pretty good too, is Frightfur Reborn. It's another normal spell card, and what it allows you to do is target one Frightfur monster in your graveyard and special summon it. During your main phase, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one of your banished Fluffal or Frightfur monsters and return it to the graveyard. So, again, this is just another way to get back your Fluffal wings or anything like that. With, when you have your Fluffal effects that banish themselves from the graveyard, to work with your toy vendor card as well to get you more draw power. Well, this basically recycles another Fluffal wings into your graveyard again, so hopefully you could reactivate its effect if you need to. But of course, the big thing about this is getting another Frightfur monster out of your graveyard and special summoning it. And the reason why I think this is so important, maybe not necessarily in the current format, but possibly once we start getting into link summoning, is, of course, now we have to worry about finding space on the board and incorporating link summons to get all of your Frightfur monsters out on the board, which, we never really worried about before in the current format, because you're just laying them all out on the field. It doesn't really matter where they go. It does, there's no hold up as far as just opening the floodgates and letting them all out onto the field. But what this does is, especially after you successfully fusion summon a monster, like, say, for example, let's just say Frightfur Tiger, you end up losing it, ends up in your graveyard. Well, utilize this card and, special summon back out your Frightfur Tiger and put it somewhere else on the field where that you're not going to be, utilizing a space or one of your arrows with your link cards. Now, I mean, we'll get much more into detail about different strategies once we start getting the link cards and seeing what works best with the Fluffal and Frightfur deck. But I mean, again, this is just an idea that you really need to start thinking about once we get the new link monsters coming out and the format changes. But that's why personally I think that this card is going to be useful in that new format, because I'm, at least from my understanding right now of the rules, is that once you've already successfully special summon a monster from your extra deck, you don't need to put it back in that extra deck monster zone next time if you get it back out of your graveyard or whatever. If you've already successfully summoned from your extra deck, you can put it anywhere else on your board. So again, this is all just part of the strategy of where things end up on the board, and this is a card that I think is going to be underrated now, but will be much more valuable down the road. So of course, one more awesome card that is currently in the OCG that I am really trying to figure out now what to take out of my extra deck and replace it with, but it's another fusion monster, Frightfur Daredevil. It is a level 8 fiend. Of course, it's a fusion monster. It's a 3,000 attack, 2,200 defense. The fusion materials that are required are 1 Edge Imp monster and 1 Fluffal monster. When this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can inflict 1,000 damage to your opponent. If this card is destroyed by battle, or if this face-up card in its owner's control leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, you can inflict 500 damage to your opponent for each Frightfur monster in your graveyard. You can only use this effect of Frightfur Daredevil once per turn. So this is just an excellent burn card. I mean, this will start burning your opponent's life points in more ways than one. That's why this adds an interesting new dynamic to how people are going to be playing the Fluffal and Frightfur type decks. So, I mean, this card speaks for itself. There's really not a whole lot more that needs to be said about Frightfur Daredevil. This is one that I will absolutely want to get my hands on as well. So, for any of you Frightfur Fluffal players out there, I know there's a whole bunch of different builds that you guys have been finding to be more successful than others. If there's anything that you want to add or any concerns that you have, even with the update with the upcoming link format that will be coming out, feel free to give me a shout on Twitter at YuGiOh Deck Talk. It's all one word. It's at YuGiOh Deck Talk. So feel free to reach out to me there. I'd be happy to even discuss Frightfur monsters in more detail in a future episode. Again, if that's the kind of thing that you want. So with that, that's today's episode, and I really appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Join us on Facebook. Go to facebook.com/YuGiOh Deck Talk. Tell us about the decks you want to see broken down and analyzed. Discuss strategy and new cards. Meet other duelists. It's all on the Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck Talk Facebook page. Like it today.